Hey, everybody, Matt Johnson here. There are big problems with Mackenzie Shirilla's story. She's lying to you.
Oh, disgust. Did you see that? I'm not a monster, right? Smug. I gotta tell you, she's saying my truth, but doesn't mean it's the truth.
But which Mackenzie should you believe? This Mackenzie that was giving a statement of elocution before the judge sentenced her to 15 years to life behind bars for killing her boyfriend and their friend? Or this Mackenzie that appeared hardened in a Netflix documentary?
What we have here is there's a lot to gain and a lot to lose. If she were, so that's where cognitive load goes up, right? So she has a lot to gain if she can pull it off, a lot to lose if she doesn't pull it off.
That's Susan Constantine, a world-renowned body language expert and jury consultant. We are going to be comparing and analyzing clips from her sentencing when she makes a statement of elocution to the judge and whether or not she's even telling the truth then. And then we're going to compare that to the clips from the Netflix documentary, including those clips that you've been asking about. Why is she speaking now? Is she telling the truth? Whether or not her account of what happened, is it all true? And then that moment at the end when she looks over and it's revealed by the producers of the documentary, her attorney is in the room the entire time. But first, do me a favor, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and share this episode. Now the case of Mackenzie Shirilla. All right, here to talk about it, we have a very special guest, Susan Constantine, a jury consultant, the author of How to Spot a Liar in 7 Seconds or Less. I have all the information in my show notes. We'll talk about it at the end of this episode. And you're a body language expert. And thank you for being on the program again, because, so many people are still talking about this Netflix documentary, if you can call it that, The Crash, with Mackenzie Shirilla and how she was behaving. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions with bits of the trailer and parts of that documentary.
Sounds good.
Let's begin with this one when she's just talking about how hard it is in prison. I want to get your take on this, and this is from the trailer. What'd you pick up on with that?
Okay, so I'm going to set the scene a little bit because, as you know, we're both in television, Matt. So there is a moment where, of course, you've got cameras everywhere. She's now framed up, right? So we have to consider those things. So she's got her arms crossed so that she's kind of framed up. I'm sure that she was guided to do that. So you always have to take things into context. Now, when we take things into context, I want you to consider that when you're in that environment, there's a lot at stake, right? So there's a lot of cognitive load. All eyes are on you. And then there's this thing that's going on inside your head, wanting to be able to perform well and say what you want to say, but also do it very naturally. And under the most unnatural situations, right? So in fact, she even mentions it at the very end, and I'll get to that. So what are things that I pointed out to? And I've talked about this on your show before, and that is when a person's facial expressions, when they're truly in their authentic self, muscles in their face will move synergistically and they will synchronize exactly the same from one side of the face to the other side of the face. It's the way that the muscles move in the face when you're actually feeling sadness or happiness or anger. They move exactly the same. If you went back and you looked at that photo, you're going to see one eyebrow that just goes way up, right? So one goes way up and one is down. So what does that mean? That means that she is very aware of what's going on and she's trying to force this emotion. And when you do that, it won't synchronize, because true emotions synchronize exactly the same. So there's other parts too where she's got her eyes are very big. She's very expressive. And she's really using eyebrows as more of an emphasizer. Listen to me. I want to tell you something. This is really important. So hold those eyebrows up and you hold them there. That is communicating to the other person that she's serious about what she's trying to say. She's using it as an emphasizer. The other thing is that she talks about the pain in her chest. There's no hand gestures. So she doesn't go, the pain in my chest. Should synchronize with her words. So there was no movement. So that goes back to she's very aware of how she's presenting herself. She's keeping herself framed up and she's not moving, which is not to her benefit because we want to see some movement. The other thing is that she doesn't name who they are. She talks about them. So there's a deterioration of that relationship, the disconnect with that relationship, which is probably not a good idea. She does, however, in some of the other clips we're going to look at, where she does name him, but not right here. So that's not a good sign.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. This is why we love having you on the show. And the viewers just adore your expertise. And we're going to get into more clips from the trailer and what's online about what she says happened, her side of the story, and also that awkward moment at the end when she's asking her attorney a question and she's almost a different person, but we'll get your take. But first, I want to go back in time and go to when she's sentenced. And I want to get your take on when she's reading a statement of elocution and whether or not there's any honesty in it.
Mackenzie, you don't have to speak if you don't want to. It's up to you. Okay? You can sit if it's more comfortable, whatever's better for you.
The families of Dom and David, I'm so deeply sorry. I hope one day you can see I would never let this happen or do it on purpose. I wish I could remember what happened. I'm just so sorry. I'm heartbroken. I love Dom and Davion. We were all friends and Dom was my soulmate. I wish I could take all your pain away. And I'm so sorry. And to my family, thank you for the support and all the love you guys give. Thank you for fighting with me. I love you all so much. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's a different person there. So it's authentic. So I don't care what everybody's thinking out there. I'm sorry, guys. She's authentic here. So if you look back at those eyebrows, remember I told you about those asymmetry where she was really forcing it? Look at it now. You're going to see that they're horizontal. They're not lifting at different levels. They're right at the same one. The other thing is with the voice, the tone, the pitch, all say the same thing. She's really struggling through this. Her voice is cracking up. It's becoming more shrilled. It's kind of jumpy. And the same thing is throughout. So that is when somebody's under a lot of stress, emotional stress, that you will hear that in their voice. And it also doesn't taper off abruptly. I mean, and that's usually one of the things like with Alex Murdaugh, he would cry, fake tears, fake nose stuff, and then boom, he would be done, right? Not here. What we're seeing is it actually softens up as it goes. That's a real emotion, because emotion will have a peak, an apex, and then it will start to glide off. That's real emotion. So I'm timing it. It was truly real emotion. She also names them at this point. And also at the very beginning of it, she raises her eyebrows and she says, yes, she wants to talk. And she says, she's asking for permission if she can. They're both symmetrical. Yes, she wants to. She's addressing it. And then she's also showing the chin boss. Chin boss is coming up, which is a sign of sadness, causes the corners of the mouth to go down. Combination with all of the other channels, as I mentioned, in the voice, the tone, the pitch, all are conclusive that she was feeling emotion there, and it was sadness.
Okay, now let's compare that to when the judge is speaking to her right before rendering the decision on the sentence.
The defendant controlled all the events. She chose the day. Specifically, she chose a day just before her 18th birthday. She chose to drive the car, the time to drive the car. She chose an obscure, previously scouted route through an industrial parkway. She chose the target to hit and the victims. She chose the means and the method to follow through. And she planned and purposefully executed the events of July 31st, 2022.
Okay, so what I'm noticing in that is that she's shaking her head as the judge is listing all of the case evidence that she was found guilty on.
Right, you're totally right on, and you picked it up perfectly. All of this was...
I have a good teacher.
Well, that's a good thing. But anyway, lots of disagreement going on. I'm not accepting it. That's not what happened. I disagree. And then she's got those long eye closures, and then it's like a form of blocking, like this is really serious, this is painful. And she does that, what we call an eye shutter. Also, she's, you see her kind of catching her breath. Well, in order to catch the breath is because you're holding your breath. So think about it. Like, if you're around somebody and all of a sudden you go, and somebody go, what's going on? What were you thinking or feeling, right? So there's something you were thinking of that caused that inhale, lots of inhale, and then that big exhale. So that's a fear going on. The mouth is stretched. The eyebrows are pinched together in pain. You can literally see the little bulges above the eyebrows. She's in disagreement. Her face is slightly flushed all around her nose. So she is showing true emotion. The eye blocking is like, it's just too much to bear. She's disagreeing. And that's what I'm seeing. Lots of disagreement. And a lot of times, in juries, when I'm working with attorneys, I often like to see disagreement when I'm hearing an expert witness testify to something, and I want them to shake their head no, because I want to send that subliminal message to the jury. That's not the way it happened. And we saw that a lot in the Karen Reed case.
Yeah, we did. And, she was very expressive and she got a lot of criticism from that. But I'm with you because I almost feel like that signals to the jury, we're going to put somebody on too, and we're going to tell you why we're disagreeing in this moment. And she was still being respectful. She wasn't, interrupting the court proceedings when she was doing that. So I'm with you, as just a layperson in the courtroom. I like to see that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we've covered a lot of trials together, Matt, so we can tell the difference. And even though you maybe not trained forensically, you've been in there enough to know when you can call, what on it when it's not real.
Yeah, like Alec Murdoch that we always go back to. It's a perfect example.
Exactly.
All right, here is the sentence before we get back to Mackenzie today, which is, again, a totally different person.
There's a very good likelihood, Mackenzie, that you will spend the rest of your life in prison. That won't be up to me. That will be up to the parole board, and that will be up to you to a great extent. I understand that the pain in this room wants me to impose the harshest sentence, but I don't believe that would be the appropriate sentence, because I do believe that Mackenzie will not be out in 15 years. So she's sentenced on count 2, the murder of Davion Flanagan, 15 years to life. She's sentenced on count 1, the murder of Dominic Russo, 15 years to life, to be served concurrent to each other with credit for time served.
Okay, so she doesn't really understand what that means.
Nope, it's exactly right. So you could see it mimicking it, just kind of reading her lips, like, what does that actually mean? So this is a really young girl too. She's naive. She doesn't really know all the terminologies, and maybe her attorney didn't explain all of that to her, but her eyes kind of widened up when she was talking about, the judge was talking about her sentencing, and you could see like this little bit of eye aperture that became more frozen and like paying attention, like, okay, here comes the real thing. And then we see that followed by rapid eye blinking. So when we see rapid eye blinking, that just means she's really thinking very fast and hard. It's called cognitive load. So we know that this is not associated with deception. This is associated to what she's actually hearing, which is like almost like an impact statement, like an impact she's hearing, and then her eyes will flutter, cognitive load. And then we see also there's a point where, I don't think that you're going to serve 15 years, or the judge didn't really find that she would be serving that many years, but that wasn't really up to her. You could see the chin balls come up. That was self-pity. Like, thank you so much for thinking of me, kind of like that self-pity. And you could see that happening. And then when she didn't realize, after she ruled on her sentence, you could see where she was uncertain, because she looked over at her attorney right there. And that's what we call a confirmation glance. What does that actually mean? Which also connected to her words when she mimicked it underneath her breath. What does that actually mean? And then she takes a big gulp, which is part of fear.
Again, fascinating, especially when you compare it to what we're about to see with this Netflix documentary. And why she agreed to do it, that's another question, because she wants to appeal all of this. And she's very careful in what she says. as the reason why she is speaking in front of the camera for the first time. Here is a clip from that. Okay, not a monster. That's what sticks out to me.
Oh, disgust. Did you see that? I'm not a monster, right? Smug. I got to tell you, she's saying my truth, but doesn't mean it's the truth. And that's kind of like that new little buzzword that people love to say, well, I want to speak my truth. I'm like, so what does that actually mean? Because that's like a new buzz thing people are using. And it's like, you know, well, first of all, it's not the truth. It's maybe your truth. Also, what we have here is there's a lot to gain and a lot to lose. If she were, so that's where cognitive load goes up, right? So she has a lot to gain. She can pull it off. A lot to lose if she doesn't pull it off. That creates cognitive load, right? This is what we call jeopardy. We need to create jeopardy. But her eyes are just kind of rolling around in her. So she's trying to figure out where she's going to be pulling this information from. And also keep in mind, there's cameras all around her. So she's doing all these little confirmation glances. So, but was the biggest one was the smugness. At the very end, you can see one corner of her mouth kind of go up to one side. That's part of what we call superiority, contempt. Dr. Ekman talks about it when you see that on one side of the mouth, very little, and then it's followed by disgust. So, I mean, I'm like, she is not liking it. She does not like it. In fact, there's like, well, it's disgust, but it's a form of scorn. Like, how dare people do it? Because this is my truth, and everybody else, they all have their stories, but I have my truth, and that's what I want to tell.
What do you make of the fact that, of course, she was a young offender, 17 at the time, probably closer to 18, if not at the trial a year later. And then this has been a couple years, but she's almost like a different person in the terms of speaking with a deeper voice and the persona. Like, is that also just development, or is that like hardness from the jail or the prison, or is this someone trying to be someone else?
I think it's more cultural, and I've seen this happen. It's cultural. Like you're in that jail, you're around a lot of people. I hate to say it, we're around a lot of thuggy people, and her language is more thuggy. I'm just going to call it out. You know, she's using this kind of like slang, and she's got a like edge to it. And we saw that Casey Anthony, when she served all those, I mean, she didn't serve, but after all those years, and then she did her documentary, there was a sense of anger and contempt in the voice, so that there's that edge to it. And that's what we look at. There wasn't, which really I would like to have seen a softening. Like, I've learned so much since I've been here. But she didn't do it. She's the opposite. So she's still holding some grudge. You know, she doesn't think she should be there, and that is coming through. So it is cultural. I actually have a really good friend of mine who is now a pastor, who very similar to this situation, was 18 years old, was under drugs and alcohol, got into an accident, killed his best friend. And then he was he was convicted of vehicular homicide. Right? So he ended up serving 10 years. Now he's a pastor. But when I hear him actually speak, I can still hear that jailhouse talk. You know, they got that little edge to their tone. So that's what I'm seeing. And also just her overall appearance, you know, the way she's wearing her hair, just her overall demeanor looks a little hardened to me.
Okay, here is the clip when she talks about what happened, or at least she's asked about it. And here's the answer she gives. Again, strange dialect or whatever. She doesn't sound like that in court. She didn't sound like that in the social media videos.
No, because that was a response that was practiced, right? When we still, how many times we see that, Matt? We see that where then all of a sudden they'll change from their natural language to more of a legal ease, kind of like there's more, I need to get this out, this is what is. And they always relate to, well, the evidence will prove, or the most obvious thing is the evidence shows. And it's like, you know, what'd she do? She blacked out. She doesn't remember driving 100 miles down the street, but she didn't really curve around. We've already proven that by the box that was in the car. That wasn't it that happened. So she was fully aware of what she did. And they always divert to lying by omission, right? I am not going to admit to it, but this is what the evidence will show. Because why? That's what she's heard her attorney say. He's used that same one. We also saw contempt again. in her facial expressions. And then she then gulps. Anytime you see that's a psychophysiological response, and that is a form of fear. Like, did I pull it off? Does it really sound good? And there's that you almost like hold your breath. And what happens with that is you don't have really the saliva, natural saliva when you're telling the truth, but also when it dries up and then you have to gulp to try to reactivate it. So there's a lot of things that we look at here. For me, I'm going to say liar, liar, pants on fire. I'm going to pull Julie's on that one.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's perfect for this scenario and this case. I mean, she's just a completely different person. And then I've always wondered what you would say if you were asked whether or not she should have done this documentary in the first place, because clearly they thought that this was going to help with some sort of appellate issue or making some buzz, whether that be, something like we saw with the Menendez brothers and them getting, their hearings. But what would you have told her about doing a documentary?
All right, so I've been in these scenarios before because I coach my clients. So we call that witness preparation, but we really do work on coaching. So what I would have done is I wanted to run by all those hard questions beforehand. So I want to see how she's responding, put her on camera, because this is what I do with my clients. I put the camera in front of them, I videotape it, and I show them. Here's when you answered that question. Can you see the meaning? What do you see when you look at that? Okay, well, that's not right. So then my job would be, if I want to have control as the attorney or trial consultant, I want to have control over the questions and that to control the narrative, right? So I would want to control what question was that would provoke the right emotion at the right time. So that's really important because I've done a lot of cases like this. And if they're not showing, like I worked on the Epstein case, one of the victims was one of my clients and wasn't showing the right emotion. And she was doing a bench trial, but also was on Zoom. And, she didn't show the right emotion over and over again. I'm like, something is wrong here. Well, we got to connect to why she feels like she's a victim. And when I found the right formula, she cried and it was really authentic, right? So that's what I try to do, is to bring out the real authentic emotion that is really inside here, her heart, not in the head, not here where she's been programmed, but to bring out the true emotion. And I think she failed. I don't think that was a good idea.
Just say, I can't talk about it because I have pending litigation. I think that, that would have been so much better than, well, I think the evidence on the case shows in the file. It's like, okay.
Yeah. There's another way of could have been handled. But again, you and I know, and we're in TV, they're going to pull what they want to pull in order to create that narrative, they've got a game plan. And sometimes they pull these little pieces out that make it look different than what it actually is. And that's what I'm so sorry to say. But a lot of times that there is that tend to sensationalism, we have to also be very cautious of. So when we're really watching this, we have to look at things also too with a critical mind. And we also have to consider all of the other elements that are happening and why the person is responding the way they are could be for other reasons as well. And in my personal opinion, and my professional opinion, is that she was not well prepared.
Yeah. And, to your point, she probably sat there for several interviews over several days, and they were probably however long they were able to get, hours long or whatever. And then this is just boiled down into whatever it is, 40 minutes on camera with her in this hour documentary, hour and 20 minutes or so. Let me put on that clip that everyone's talking about. And this is why I was asking you about what you would have consulted, because this is the whole changing of her persona at the end when she looks over and it's revealed that her attorney's in the room.
Okay, so this is exactly what we just talked about. They pulled the clip, they kept it running because they know at the very end, oftentimes when they think the camera was turned off, it's still rolling. It's still going. And so she was looking at her attorney as like looking for affirmation glass. You did good. You're doing really good. Did I say everything? And then she kind of shrilled up a little bit. So she felt a little insecure about whether she really did do a good job, and she was looking over at him like him or her, did I answer all the questions, because I don't want to look crazy or something. So that goes back to, she's hyper aware of how she is presenting herself. See, that's where the inauthenticity comes in, because if you're in authenticity, you're not really concerned about how you're presenting it. You're just presenting it. You're aware, but when you're containing, controlling everything, I call it like a teapot. Everything's all kind of controlled up, and then we're going to see the steam kind of coming out when you're trying to be deceptive, and it kind of spills out and spits and sputters, and we see that throughout this entire segment.
Isn't it interesting also that the attorney is so self-aware that you don't hear them audibly, that they must be doing some sort of hand movements?
Yeah, I saw this in the Jerry Sandusky case too, when he was asked questions about sexual molestation, and he looked over and his attorney kind of spoke for him. You see the same kind of thing, Yes, I mean, if I were there, I am now the trial consultant, or let's just say I was an attorney, I'd be watching really close. And not only that, I'd be interrupting. No, cut. I would not allow my client to continue on. I'd say, stop right there, stop. But then again, if the camera's still rolling, then you would have heard that too. So kind of like attorneys in a catch-22. Should they say something? Should they not say something? And what was agreed upon prior to going into that interview, I think they could have had a little bit more control over it.
Yeah, and they probably signed some sort of an agreement before they even got in front of the camera, or they turned the cameras on. But I'm also wondering if it was all a bigger plan. 'Cause I don't know these producers. I have nothing against them. I'll just say that. But, as you were saying, some people have an agenda. I was wondering if maybe they did a meeting at first and kind of saw how the situation was maybe kind of going to go, and then they decided to put that camera up high. I just think it's a weird position for a camera that is just a single camera shoot for the documentary shot through the whole thing.
Yeah, well, you know more about that kind of stuff than I do. That's not kind of my expertise. But you're right. There are those cameras that come up, but there's other ones that come in the side. Which ones are they zooming in on? That they're trying to create this environment. Why did they do that? Like, there was a beginning where, at the beginning of the documentary, where her eyes were closed and she's like this, and then her eyes are closed, and then she opens her eyes up. That's drama, right? That was time. So they didn't say close your eyes and now open them back up. I think of those in like horror films. Like all of a sudden they're dead, and all of a sudden they open their eyes back up. But anyway, I think that's really interesting. I would like to know more. I think that's your line of expertise. So I kind of want to get your view on that one.
Well, I think that's all in the editing. Again, this is probably over several days. And then there had to been a shot where maybe she was like, maybe her eyes were dry and she just looked down and then looked up. And then you can also slow down the shutter. You can slow it down in editing by 0.5%. And then it's even more dramatic. Something like that. I always look at that when I look at documentaries. I've been part of a lot of documentaries, as you have, but I've been on the other side of it. But I again think that camera angle at the end is weird. I don't think that there is a purpose for that camera angle unless they were trying to get a certain shot from the beginning that they had already pre-imagined. So I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. I have no horse in the race, but it's great to get your point of view on all of this.
You're welcome. When you're right, you and I, we have no skin in the game, so there's no reason for us to twist it one way or the other. We just call it out what we see, and that's all we can comment on, right?
Yeah, and you've been a part and commenting on the Michael Jackson case, Jeffrey Epstein, as you mentioned, Elizabeth Holmes, a lot of high-profile cases. You are, again, a jury consultant, body language expert, which we love. And then you are the author of several books, including this one.
Yeah, that's coming out in February. So, guys, if you go on Barnes & Noble right now, you actually can pre-register for this. And so I'd love to have you guys join on, pre-register for it. And when it comes out in February, you'll be able to get a copy of the book for your own reading. But I teach you literally everything that I do in real world. So you're going to get the creme de la creme method and how to spot a liar in 7 seconds or less.
It's fascinating also in reading just the paragraph about the book, how you can use it in day-to-day world and day-to-day life. You don't really think about all the other ways.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it in every single area of your life because, there's no new ways to lie. the humans lie the same way. There's no new methods. There might be AI stuff that's different. Remove all of that, but humans all lie the same way. There's all these techniques that they use that have been proven. There's no other new ones that are coming up. Other than that, I think there's a lot more psychopathy that's going on right now. In addition to that, those with a lot of charisma. Be careful of the charisma, because that also can be a sign that someone is trying to manipulate you.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate your time, and I hope to see you back soon.
Thank you.
If you would like to hear more analysis about this case, just head to the video section of this YouTube channel. I recently interviewed a crash reconstructionist. He walks us through what was detected on the black box and what was happening in those final moments before the crash. I spoke with a forensic psychiatrist that explains why she believes that Mackenzie is a psychopath. And then I also speak with a former prison inmate that spent time with Mackenzie Shirilla behind bars. All fascinating conversations. Please check out those videos. And when you're there, please hit the like and the subscribe. That'll do it for this episode. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time.